배야 보고 시작지다. 늑사로 봐, 배야 보고 시작지. 되지? 돌아에 넘버를 집에 라 넘버를 집에 게 들어봐 당신 전배 버드 주바라 제바 담지 제소의 집에 마남 가던 연배 semchen 담지 대화 당대 동아라당 Señor de la name para yanta para zobe chancho rinpo che to para chai dala damar chibe cha no para chibe ge tarwa dam tam chin chenbe pardu ju para chiba tam chi je to chibe ma nam ka tan nyambe Samjian tamjie dewa tang den dungar tang chi nyur tu lana mi bar yang da bra zo be chang chu ren bu chi to bra cha mi mi
Other sentient beings, limitless as space, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be free from suffering, and swiftly may they attain precious, unsurpassed, perfectly complete enlightenment.
ti chi tu sang ma ji ji phar tu lu nga yi song ge wa la ko ra ma shi phar tu lu nga yi song ge wa la ko ra chu te re ne song de nyue ma sang ta zam ji phar tu lu nga yi song ge wa la ko
For that purpose, until I attain Buddhahood, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. Until death, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue. From today until this time tomorrow, I will apply my body, speech, and mind to virtue.
도시엔 청와대로 나로도 만매 타고 바른지 변공 거리 승대 자외 라메샤 자주 라마 예담 추종 서로 안 돼서 다주 진제로 야 전에 다른 소 활성대 냠스랑의 초주 세와 다시 송차네 자那天只要出去，他尊重着我，那天是尊重着我的习惯的时候，尊重些，我是出去那天去。
So last time we finished the 10 things to train in. Today we continue with the 10 things to persist in. And so persist in here, it refers to practicing with diligence. So persisting here means diligence. So,
真的嘞，从不把这拉开始，那他头发起过来也是，头上起过头发的，上把的那天起过来也是。我这开始那头发这第是嘛，经常娘是那样子，要我洗个嘛的也是。我这头发起，这上把起，上路当，这嘛经常啊，几周个的头发的起那，这几周个的也是。我这女在说，这说长嘛3年起，长不头发，这上路当，我这就起过来也是。我这老朋友1年开始从我身，春年头上。春年头上3点吧，我把男的拉的就是秋天当，那秋天可以呢，说他这一顿开了呢，说他这个开了呢，就秋天当，这是头把戏，这上把戏当点吧，这公办人来去啊，我这是就去过的是，我这我这进步的是，
um, and so the first verse says, when a beginner persists in learning and reflection. So beginners should be diligent in listening to the teachings and reflecting on them, contemplating them. Because if you don't hear the teachings, then you also cannot develop reflection. And if you don't reflect, then you will forget what you have heard. So there's a sequence to it, and it must be done step by step. Bando said, by maintaining a discipline, listening and contemplating, one engages thoroughly in meditation. Um, so one practices meditation on the basis of diligently hearing and reflecting. So this is the correct order. We listen, then we reflect, and then we meditate. So.
근데 그러잖아. 가져다 냠내치야. 정말 저 공부지 마지 큰거라 초성자 치고는 때 마지나 냠내치야. 저 야고 시에서 말해서 어때 남자도 되냐 노르야 냠내치를 남 노르야 코리아노 tentu yung kisi hachi tuwaan raya nung tentu shaasi kiri tentu wa tentu tenga so tosam ti shui chi kore nga zo be so te ho be na se toba mi be gomba te lakdom chalan zai banda ta toba di si maji na gom ji bo jam na lakwa me zai cha gang yang go go na go to kuma rao wa tentu na wo le zong wo wa
Mm,
ah
hola, Soya. Mhm.
mm.
And so let's see. So in the beginning of the practice, we have to rely on studying and reflection. So without that, with listening and contemplating, without hearing the teachings and contemplating them first, we won't know how to practice them properly. And then if we don't know how to practice them properly, then we may go astray on our path. We can make mistakes and encounter various obstacles. There's this saying in Tibet, they say that meditation without learning is like a handless person trying to climb a cliff, so trying to climb on a rock.
다 니파트 냠뇽제는 공급을 내한테시 아디스 냠토는 냠뇽랑 디시에서는 공자가도 디스다는 뭐트 내한테시 고스 그래서 냠뇽 디시죠 샤샤는 제 공트방 도 예엔토로 텐두 디스 냠뇽제도 테비 뭐트 사냠네 제가 뭐트 치고레스
Then the next verse says, when experience arises, persist in meditation and accomplishment. So that means that we may begin to gain some experience in practice, but we must persist in the practice. So we can't just let it just do it let it be, having gained a little bit of experience, but we have to always strengthen and integrate our experience and make it a continuous state of practice.
전에 다 초삼다 지 초삼도 저 잠노티 냐당 냠뇽비시나 그 공자가 저 잠노 당 그랬으면 그 가지 지보시나 대지보이야 생고 관로를 생고 고선도 되는 아 카진 바이야 저 지든 돈다 가는 냠네 가야 메바지 저르제 치디는 세리즈 랑주 투마서 바지 랑주 저 투톱 말에 저 투마서 는데 냠네한테 편하시라 마토데 저 배장 디시에디나 티키 냠네 저 편하소야 시라 메바 我曾经有个人，现在这个应该说，这边把店，我把店你们呢，我们把当初把现在来说，现在上坡这不那天，其实你们来几个人是，我在你们其实上说在那这个是个你刚也讲过了，那么在你们他就你们来说就接特别看来，这我当初在中周期才来见的这这种也就接特他，我这里边送去过的，送学啥的。전에 다 공부할 때 있지나 공부할 때 있지나这推进人们这个嘛的그래서는 나랑서 면에 화차 되지 용모 차단 모선 화차 효침부 제가 티 컴퓨터 때는 공부랑 야고 제토고 말아这嘛差不多现在나랑서 제说的是专注起过去他专注的系统呢现在我们这样的接特别的配给的在他 我做后背就尊重间是多了，没会尊重间多但是多没会做个是，我只拿一类的，我尊重起点那个可能样没做了，刚样嘛，这的，这公司这个是尊重起过来也是，
但是你背的吧，老板没把给找到的对，
别人蛮差那个是，
背上把佢哋找到的，老板没有给他，
嘛的，
先把这个，
他到尊重下的，
但那背起是啥？
尊重间多了没会做的，多没会，多天差不多有了，
嗯哼，
尊重起呢。
嗯哼，
多大的多钱，多让一木配特别的是有么现在呢，变着我在
哦，
那想了，我在那也是比赛，上来是在人家没就大多钱，有么简单
嗯
的么多没木配特别的说，在那应该是总之去呢，这个可以呢，没做不了嘛的意思。
嗯哼，um, okay. So then, so we must gain some experience first in reflection and learning about the teachings and reflecting on them. But then once we have that, we also have to move on to actually practice it, to practice meditation. So we shouldn't get stuck in just learning and intellectual reflections. Once you have an understanding, then you also have to put that to practice, meditation practice. So if we don't actually go there and we just keep being stuck in our no learning, then we may go astray, because even if you know the text really well, without actual practice it won't bring a lot of benefit. And that is why we are advised to go into isolated places and practice consistently. And in such places, we need to stabilize our practice of shamatha, calm abiding, and vipassana, insight. And all of that takes an effort. These experiences don't arise just on their own or very quickly. We need to be very diligent at first and really make an effort to develop a true meditative experience. So we won't gain these experiences in just a short time. And that is because of our old habitual patterns, the karmic imprints of the afflictive emotions of attachment, anger, ignorance. They are very strong. And that is why meditation doesn't bring immediate results. But if we practice with diligence, we will progress. It is possible to really improve. Change is possible. There's this saying in Tibet that diligence is like kind of wiping a rock with a soft cotton cloth. If you do that consistently, then even a cotton cloth can wear down a rock eventually if you could just keep wiping long enough. So that is to say that with a steady effort, really anything can be accomplished. So,
我真的当时把这些电报码头把这电报了电是到那么多，但你们俩电报码头那这你们俩咱个做电报地码头，那你们俩在地西呢，你们俩是把然后也这个，但是电报电是电报设置这码头好像电报电报现在它六元吧，但是出了电下的，真的3万吧，这是那么多去花儿嘛，出了你们俩去投票。真的，我明白他这个下题拉嘛，我写了说起啊，但我也说明白是点过去啥的。所以我这你嘛，他那明白就是点是出这提出要的话，是他提上就必须把那个工作啊，没种这是推出公布有的提出有的小明白点有点不多特别，搞来看你们那个做或者是车主办，咱们提出其他这都说的话，我提出点对，我提出点要这有的话，你那他这样做，提个上做提起嘛，他们马上做这。说这的意思。在你们那期要推出兄弟体讲这，但是呃，在像那特别，你们来讲做像那特别，这对在一起特别的，这情况啥的意思？
then we come to verse number 3. Until you attain stability, persist in solitude. Um, so we should practice diligently until some stability is attained. Otherwise, if we do not even if we have gained some experience, if we don't continue with diligence, then the practice that we have developed may fade away. And so therefore we should practice in isolation. And so for isolation, there is the isolation of the body. So the isolation of the body is to physically go to like a retreat place where you practice in isolation. And then the isolation of the mind is to isolate yourself from thoughts. So not allowing thoughts to interrupt your practice. And then the isolation of speech is just simply to speak less, maintain silence in a place of isolation. And so in the past, there's a Tibetan tradition of often spending one's whole life in retreat. And nowadays, this is much harder because people don't have the time. They just don't have the condition to do a retreat like that. But even if you can't do a long retreat like that, just practice however much time you have. If you have time, just use this time and practice steadily and build stability. So the most important thing is to build some continuity, to build some stability. Yes, sir.
근데 저러 연구 봐 대주송 그래서 땅그랑 소티 저 냠뇨 냠년세 내가 특히 람상래라고 요 말해서 가서 통마미 비네 대 화차트 콤 대요라서 콤송데 저 봉야 깔래 가고 그러지 어제 다 고미 유르모 콤도 생거레스 어제 녀모다 코리아 녀모 맞아서 와한테 마셔 봐 어제 지내 때 맞아 바된 거래 좀 살아
Mhm. Um, and then a master called Yarva Yangomba, he said that from beginningless time until now, we have habituated to these karmic imprints. So we are really very it have very deep set habits, and that is why it's not so easy right now. The habits runs very deep, and so therefore, he said that we must. Therefore, that's why we have to practice with such diligence. We have to accustom ourselves to the practice. That is why we rely on solitude with diligence, because until the stability arises, uh, we will not be protected from falling back again into under the sway of samsara's afflictions and samsara's faults. So,
근데 지수멜라레 방에마 감보바 다 지수멜라레 백군데 당화 참아 쉬든 파송 지수멜라레 팔 지요사로 지서데 되네 감보바 판로데 지수멜라타라 쇼고사 제 팔 감보바 팔지 잡사리 소쇼 좀사 제 소쇼제 그 야제 그 용리스 그 용도 당게 당화 나죠 정도 당화 나죠 그 감보바 베 가스 딱베 나저 자신 보지 나야 살상 가스 메디스 거르베제 다 메디 고 말해 정도 다 가로도 지주말을 봐 그러나 온도 때도 온도 요라 온도 때도 당한 온도의 TV 샤나 차도 그 TV 샤나 온도 말어 차 당한 대로 갈래 잡지 공장이스 호텔 때는 때 타임 양료도 있지 지레스 내려 온도들 차본들 샤 차본 차도 살아 봐 대로 마셔 하스당에 공장이 있어 대처럼한테 난 시지 어제스 간보바베 샘 잡고라서 믹스 총도사
um, so when Milarepa gave all the instructions to Gampopa, and so when all the instructions were given, it was time for them to part. And Gampopa was leaving, and Milarepa walked him part way, and then Gampopa eventually continued on his own. But then after a while, then Milarepa called him back. He said, "Wait, come back. I have one more instruction for you." And then Gampopa thought, he was so happy, and he thought that, wow, this must be the instruction. That must be the most profound instruction. Now he will give me the secret instruction. So he returned and said, should I first offer a mandala? And Milarepa said, there's no need for any mandala. Um, I only need to show you something. And then Milarepa simply turned around, pulled up his robe, and showed his backside, his bum, his butt. And when he looked at when Gambopa saw his butt, Milarepa's butt was all red and calloused like leather from his sitting on bare rock for so long. And Milarepa said, "This is my final instruction to you. I practiced so hard that his my butt looks like a monkey butt. It's red and calloused and really hard. And this is because I practiced with so much diligence. Look at this. You should practice and do the same. Your butt should look like this too." So this was the special instruction that he received, that Gampopa received, and at that time, Gampopa had a very profound experience.
哦，真的就是没那个嘛，老早当年铺是来修的地方，
Kana?
真老早
Kana
当年铺，现在老早当年大年的，是啥大年
Oh,
完了，
Tanya
咋不
Puk.
就是了？嗯，
Mhm, mhm.
哦，他这了马瑞扎当马区，这次来修的的，这面进步最多，这让他们特别进步有的，让他们年轻，你啥出去，而且年轻你种出去的话，你们把他们全面进步最多，都全面
Retotele.
这，
Dochemo.
都全面进步的。
Mhm,
我真过了下呢，前面的人马做法是，他就跟我们家在学的多，他他这个作业呢，第四个来考不，他就问我去做这个呢，第四个来考不了，他真没那里边人才没
mm,
他就多这边，我他就这个来家的，他他原天是接学啥的，我听那个说，这边把这人家呢他就去过来送学啥的，
mhm. Also, when Milarepa still stayed with Marpa in Lodak in that Tanya cave, so he was practicing according to Marpa's instructions. And so one of the instructions at that time was Marpa gave him a large stone um, butter lamp. So it's like a kind of like huge, like kind of three times a plate or so. It's like and also the vessel is made out of rock. And then on top of that was a butter lamp, like a candle flame. And Marpa placed that on Milarepa's head and said, turn, he lit the fire on the butter lamp and he said, "Keep this on your head until all the butter is burned off, until it's totally, until the light goes out on its own. Don't move, but meditate." And so he did. And that's actually incredibly difficult. Like if we had to do that, we probably couldn't even stay still or kind of keep it from falling from our head for like half an hour. But Milarepa actually practiced like that without distraction day and night. And so this is how we um, should ideally practice in isolation. So,
我真的他这是七八这里，但超过先前那这块军把了，两天前是啊，我们这里咱超过他新某有了。我知道他都去了，我们这对他常常超过小情不在穷，对真的超过这个，他现在就嘛的，南方嘛不在，南咱们这在南方在南方，常常给嘛在，大家看的那天前把这种天红样的去，我曾经在听，我对真的过把是的，我在过把是去的，我在那个是军过的，是如果军现在做这个南的，他去过的，是那天去过的，他没人把去过去，这个，严嵩起头的嘛的。我之前对我说，他动的几月前的现在的，我现在他做运动或者现在的做运动或者上动人呢，现在的他或者现在的哪怕去，他请过你请完的，请完身他把这我没把这话，他过把身他这里出过身了，他出身判出一个下来过把身就是你嘛说吧，我他针对起用对真的，他这里怕他脾气啊，那说想你啥么事情过去的。
mhm. We move on to verse number 4. When particularly scattered or agitated, persist in softening your awareness. And so there are two main faults in meditation. That is, so as it says, scattered or agitation, or we call it mental sinking and agitation. So mental sinking is when you lose your mental clarity. And so these two are kind of the worst, kind of the most the greatest faults of meditation. like the kind of pitfalls of meditation. So when the mind is agitated, then that is a state where many thoughts arise in your mind, and you keep thinking, for example, about something you did before or something you did in the past. You can't stop thinking about it. The mind is restless. That's agitation, and sinking or lack of clarity is when the mind becomes dull with no clarity. So you're not fully there. And at those times, it is necessary to bring the mind back inward, to tame the mind by bringing it back inward and being undistracted. If you're distracted, then actual meditation is not possible. So for ultimately for vipassana or special insight to arise, this vipassana must rest on a stable foundation of shamatha or calm abiding. And so so then so the main obstacle for that, like for shamatha to arise, is thinking or like lack of clarity or mental agitation. And so we need to be skillful in finding the right method for us to avoid falling into either one of these faults. So,
어떤데 나랑 소제 저 내가 참담 그러와도 동아체 내가 소단 남토도 내를 초네 다 화스 그러와 참들이 근데 단 그제 그러와 파지고 주 아니면 치 투비아선然后这里参加是没上去完了我吃吧去没上去吧这样呢等等当我说有人不得呀你看那个有嘛提前这娘呢推送的说他你透过那个车往学生这们都上这七万没他吃吧去也不吃嘛这说研究是接触下去光从那出呀我前准备从这去啊啥的然后呢他在咱们去嘛说那这这上万就是这是忙啥上万这是忙来啥这些就为了上万他就这啥thế này thủ đô是超市功能，这已经前面昂上的一片多啥的，这恐怕都拿是多特别的。我当我们开始弄些情报了，他就上网就情报的，他就这特别，他就去那做了这，是不是做了去做些那这昂先那特别，他就的昂这一片多啥的是。
um, yeah. Yeah, and so sometimes what we can reflect on when these faults arise is we can cultivate some renunciation, thinking, for example, about the faults of samsara, thinking that until now I have been trapped in all these thoughts, this mental chatter, and that's why I keep wandering in cycles in samsara. And actually thinking that there is just that there is any happiness, but actually there isn't. So think about that. Or you can also at times reflect on impermanence and think that this life won't last for long. It's not okay for me to allow my mind to be caught up in all kinds of meaningless thoughts all the time. So cultivate some renunciation. And still, if the mind still can't settle, then also you can adjust some of your supporting conditions. For example, you can eat more nourishing, a bit more hearty kind of food, and wear warm clothing. And you can practice in a darker, kind of dimmer kind of room. And so that's helpful when you have some wind imbalance. Then you're more like naturally more restless, and so then it's better to have proper food, like hearty food, and to be warm, because then the body is more relaxed, and in this way the mind can stay. So
다 지금 말하려 배터송으로 지금 감사나 남토고마 망라고 남토고마 망보여레스 고보여레스 남토고마 망라고 삼태너로 출래치 삼태너로 세다 삼태너로 나오레스 테고마 텔포로 고슈레 인가가레 삼태너로 고라 이미 메르세 치레스 다 인와미 바시네 메르세 저는 메르세 다 중첩치 고레스 다 중첩 가르세는 전부 년 바스게 가 램치에서 남토 망조베다高后查那我轻微去往这个，这全部人把这些措施，我的全部人把这些措施把习惯，说这，做要不行吧的，别强调谁能做，但人家的谁主义呢？ kuba be tang cha na hong kuba tala bi ya bo tong ma res kuba lu cha na gu ya bo de de ko na ge ze nyong ba je ko ge ro ten na ji ten na so sem tala ten ru ko ge res
Um, then Amila Ripa said that the discursive thoughts are like thieves, and they're like really savage, thieves. And your meditation is like a precious gem. And this precious gem of meditation can be stolen by the thieves of thoughts, of discursive thinking. Therefore, he said, you must guard it. You must guard your precious gem of meditation for life. So never be distracted. So how can you not be distracted then? So you want to have the right measure of being focused and also loose or relaxed. So you need some focus and some relaxation, but not too much of both. The right balance, with the right amount of effort and the right amount of relaxation. If you push too hard, then the mind gets tense. But if you're too relaxed, the mind becomes dull. It is just like tuning a guitar. If the strings are too tight, then it won't produce a pleasant sound. But if the strings are too loose, then there won't be any sound at all. So the strings need just the right balance. And so similarly, our meditation needs to have just the right balance between too tight and too loose.
我真的我当个当初是多人他在国家忙不，但是这生活路去，他是这是他家的忙的呀，或者是他出国忙不了呢。
So in brief, if you find that the mind is generally more agitated, which is often the case, then mainly you need to be a little bit more relaxed. So then the mind is better to focus a little bit more on relaxation.
我真的当个吧，这里在清末前前那这块，也了吧了，那天瞧是的，到清末现在清末现在这是我们吧，某个现在当都是啥子，我这些清末的那真的，这块但也了吧，其实这是要抽这是要 sem 的是要这是要看着那个要帮多来起呢，这是要是现在这块要是当下这个了，这就是当下差不多。我这两天下过来是我的我这个月啥，那这上这光去吧，其他这个我们家的人做过些，就让亲戚听你不这个来起个来，我在天就亲戚在那，我说亲嘛，现在这我明白，亲戚过现在，他拿是那他必须的，这嘛错了话的起，我这就现在真的这起用的咱可能有的是那，咱我说，第一下先是要看到了我日把自己俺找当呢，俺找当真的是是什么呢？他起头带过去的是。
Mm. When we come to verse number 5, when dullness and sinking predominate, persist in refreshing your awareness. And so here, this is mainly about the dullness and sinking. So sinking again is the mind that has become unclear. It is, you should say, it is dull and sinking. So dull is also it's very dim, and so not clear at all. And that is a major obstacle to meditation. So, what do we do when the mind loses its clarity? We have to uplift the mind, brighten the awareness. So, you invigorate your awareness to bring it back to practice.
我真正个当初听叫你个话，吃没到嘞，就这可能你没做这全把去。我当时说这个说，他才是推动的公布的上面研究的些呢，样样这块的是哪当头呀？我听出什么的上，我他针对大陆的情况的针对有情况有可能，那我说卡拉的是用啥过来的？卡拉的是用啥？第三那是人家其他的第十八岁我有吧？第长毛的第三有那这上，希望这忘的没给我偏给的是。 smoke want to make your dish some more. Karunga Maga, Domba, Chundri Jazachi, Pando to the Sina Ricosate, or the Richina, the Hunties, Sambia, this art on it, Richina, this, patients at it. 我在第六辈中，我打趟趟的，甚至他妈日本我没有那是就写了我在下线看干嘛呢？打趟甚至专门的他们说钱呢？他现在的那个日本说俺要或者那嘛头话是说中国的四大松多，我正常习惯学啥的吧？
Mhm. So then, uh, at that time, so when you feel like mental dullness coming upon you, then it is good to develop some renunciation, to think about the difficulty of finding a precious human body and the faults of samsara, and just think an impermanence, think that I do not have a long time here. I need to practice. So just try to reflect on these things to lift up your awareness, to invigorate awareness. And then if the dullness persists, then try eating a little bit less and also make your environment a bit brighter, lighter, more light and cooler. And also if the mind is really still sluggish, you can move around a bit, like walking around a little bit to refresh your energy, to lift yourself up. And so Tilopa said in the Ganges Mahamudra, you should apply different techniques, such as changing your gaze, your posture, your breath, or attention, whatever helps you revive your clarity. So.
哦，真的，到干部背诵到干部背开始从先开始先让先长期讲嘛，种的马球吧，这样满意吧，以前的动作也有什么了，抗氧马球吧，下次这些是给谁想用这等于的，咱们俩这样子那的，那真的都话是第三，那跑是金融村这个的是，我这生意把他这个是这把他的是，这我们所介绍的偏给的是，我这这个让做专注的是七过去了，我专注起码从那真的第四是咱们俩去，当年咱们俩用啥嘛的，当样子情况修行不一样，出外修行不，那就用啥嘛的，咱这专注嘛当那真的那说咱们俩去图嘛的，这话情况说这个。我到这一口起头那么头那那起头那这他青蛙的锅巴的用那青骨块的往那提纲了，往他妈小微信别从是一样的呀，第四凶呢，那样的也接当呀，他说咱们当没推起的那了，说我们是往专门是得有嘛的意思。
Gampopa said that rest your mind uncontaminated by anything, without being anything, unconditioned by anything, clear and vivid, and single pointed. So at first there may be distraction and movement, but with familiarity, those concepts will gradually diminish and the mind will become increasingly clear. So this isn't how meditation arises, but it takes diligence. If you don't make the effort and you just think that I just can't do it, my mind is just too dull or I'm just too restless, I just can't do it, then these thoughts become the obstacle. So don't allow the mind to become controlled by these kind of thoughts. It's just whatever arises, whether you feel dull or agitated, don't let it take you over, but just stay with the practice. And slowly, if you keep going, you will gradually improve.
哦，真的泡沫出来这种的是，他路线这种哪儿跑吧，也路线哪儿是好不稳得起，路线走好不稳得起呢，哪儿跑车稳得起呢，真的光牛面昂，先是光把牛面昂，先是光把的，那么光不出去问，这说牛面昂是先两讲说添住个意思，两讲添个意思，就是这块生意多呗，是我就是这块呀，这是俺这么多钱那是。青蛙我是青不巴士，青蛙我是这么的呀，你们讲的呀，俺这是呀，青州没州的呀子，你们讲那特别呀，我是这种巴的工给的种多。 What do you need to support this? そのwhat in your nechi?
Um, then Paramo said that by settling the body and mind in the natural state, which is the natural state is basically a relaxed state. So you're resting, relaxed at the body and the mind. By doing that, agitation will dissolve into the innate nature. And by slightly raising awareness, mental thinking blazes as great luminosity. So when you relax without dullness, you stay alert. You will be able to remain in a state of practice. So.
야, 다 전에 세상 인가 레카스도 전에
Mm,
됐었거지만 지홍스.
mm. So we stopped here a little early today because Rupan says he has something to do, but as we said, I'll see you next week.
야, 데리게 린지 요사 말봐.
Mm.
린지 요사를 왜?
See you. You Tenzin?
이스와나 요사. 왜?
Oh, you remember.
아,
I can't remember.
너痛对，等下，
Uh,
你哪痛对？
Parang ya, kamu tuh tarong di Shoktiap tila global dik.
晓得，
Okay.
晓得，但是蛮好，你
Mm.
懂，
A glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind, root, and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, bodhisattvas, heroes, and heroines, yogini and assembly of dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please heed me. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all sentient beings through my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, and jealousy not arise within my mind. Next page. May thoughts of fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta. And through that, may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. Even at death, may the torment of suffering not arise. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and in the pervasive clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Oh, bye bye.
Have to go. Thank you, Ina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take
Okay.
care. Bye bye.
Have a great evening.
You too. Have a great evening.